how Hunters are going to use this. Can, of course, go for the roam at Lorelei, could have take it into the jungle or even the lane. We talked a little bit about that in game one. We'll wait to see how it develops throughout this draft. Now looking for the next ban, a lot of options still available for Hunters here. We'll probably want to keep the Sky up for themselves, but could take away Krull, could take away Blackfeather.
I think you ban Kestrel here against Creation, or Vox as well is a fantastic ban. It really is the one you feel like you can't deal with the most. Vox, because of his Sonic Zoom, of course, it allows him to be so aggressive. Kestrel, though, with a Churn Walker is very difficult to deal with, and so Hunter's going to have to be careful. Potentially they can pick it now to take that away from Ace Gaming. That Rona ban coming through means Blackfeather has been left open in this draft completely. Blackfeather is actually not as good into Churn Walker as you may consider. So Ace Gaming knows this potentially and are baiting out the pick.
Yeah, it will be picked up by Hunters, so I'll have to wait and see how Ace Gaming are able to react to that. There's so many different options for Ace here. Do they go for a hyper carry? Is that the only style they have as a team, or do they have a lot of different options they can delve into? Because it could be that Hunters have felt like we can deal with a hyper carry if we get the Lorelei and the Blackfeather, and Ace Gaming just gonna be like, okay, we'll just play a full team fight team. We don't need to play around hyper carries.
It's very difficult because Lorelei Blackfeather is a very offensive combination we talked about in the draft of game one, that the Lorelei providing the Water Ward to the Blackfeather makes him practically unkillable, and the Vox ban coming through makes it very difficult for Ace Gaming to deal with. Kestrel is a hero that Creation is very well renowned for, and it compared with the Churn Walker very well, but Blackfeather fairly good into a Kestrel, and so you have to kind of stress test that ability to deal with the Blackfeather with as a Churn Walker, and if you can keep that Kestrel alive. This Petal pick coming through, very much likely going to be a Crystal Power Petal in the jungle. Never mind, it's Weapon Power potentially in the lane. Alpha's locked in.
We never really know with Ace Gaming. They have so much flexibility and versatility in the draft. It could be Weapon Power Churn Walker in lane for all we know.
No, it's not. If there's one thing I know to be true, it's not that. The rest of them, Medic, I will give you. But wow, Weapon Power Petal has come through. In 2.10, Petal is in a tough spot. I believe the Tornado Trigger changes came through, as well as a 5% nerf on her Trampoline, Weapon Power Amp, and Crystal Power Amp. It doesn't mean she's impossible. She provides so much burst potential, but I'm not sure this is the pick you want against a Blackfeather because of the fact that he's going to have so much sustained damage, tanky stats, as well as a Water Wall to keep him alive. It seems a little bit off the wall to come from Ace Gaming, but I'm really excited to see how they pull it through. That Samuel last pick coming out is actually going to be very vulnerable to the Petal, and so that's something that Hunters have to be aware of. But now they have zone control as well as a massive ability to engage a team fight as well, so it's something that Ace are going to have to be particularly cautious of. However, when you dive a Churn Walker, that's when Churn Walker can thrive in a team fight.
Do Hunters actually need to dive the Churn Walker with the Samuel? Can they poke down and then when the Churn Walker's low, go in for the engage? Is that what they're kind of trying to do with this competition?
Yeah, especially with the Samuel, you definitely, with a Dragon's Eye, look to poke down as much as possible. Samuel on 2.10 is sleeper OP, but he requires an immense amount of mechanical skill to keep your Dragon's Eye stacks alive because of the fact that they fall off after 4 seconds, 3 stacks a second. That is very, very hard. Sorry, it's 2.5 seconds, not 4 seconds. After 2.5 seconds, 3 stacks a second. So that means that you have to consistently keep the Dragon's Eye stacking. You do this by auto attack, you do this by Malice and Verdicts in the Drifting Dark, of course. But if you drop those Dragon's Eyes, your team fights suddenly become far less threatening to the opponent. And so, yes, you can poke down with a Samuel, especially at the beginning of a team fight. And if the poke damage is enough to Petal, who is extremely squishy, then Blackfeather can just dive on in with a Water War to keep himself alive and take down Creation. So this draft here is far more has far more potential for Hunters to play that Chinese aggressive style against Ace here, and I like it for what they're strong at.
Ace were very good in the first game of reacting, playing defensively early on when they needed to, not taking trades, so we'll have to see if Hunters are able to actually find those avenues, find those pathways into the jungle of Ace Gaming. But once again, we're on to the Halcyon Fold for Game 2 of Day 2 of the Vainglory World Championships. Hunters up against Ace, 1 game down in this series. For a moment, I wondered if Harmonious might have been sneaking and gone for a CP Black Feather here, only because I can never really predict the drafts coming out from Hunters, but it looks like it is going to be Weapon Power on that Black Feather.
Yeah, no, it would be a surprise to me if he does switch on over to the Crystal Power Black Feather. But now that you brought it up, it is definitely not an impossibility due to the fact that the range advantage that would come out of the composition from Hunters.
Oh, good steal.
Yeah, nice.
Sorry, I like to see it when Romans steal them because that's what I try and do at the start of every game, and I never get them. So when someone else steals it, oh, I'm like, yeah, good job, Godfather.
You
Strong
appreciate it. Have to show the respect here. It's an interesting proposition you bring up here, Medic, because Hunters could then just play a range game and poke from afar, and it would be pretty difficult, I think, for Ace Gaming to deal with, especially once that Black Feather hits the on-point overdrive at level 8. We'll see now he's going to backport, has gold to buy. If Crystal Power bits come through, then we know he's going towards it. No, it's a weapon power bit. So it is going to be what we expected here, which is good into Petal due to the fact that he can kind of deal with the offensive crit build that these Petals prioritize.
Interesting to see Minion Candy used by Hunters as well to try and push up that lane. We didn't see too many of them in Game 1, but yesterday there were a lot of Minion Cannons being used by both teams to try and get the pressure in the lane, to try and get the push advantage.
Minion Candy is such a powerful asset, and it's so cheap to use as well. It allows you to rotate out of lane, and what Harmonious did there was go back, purchase, and get a back rotation with Swagu, which puts him in a massive advantage over Creation, not only in gold but experience as well. You need to get that Black Feather to level 8 quicker, as quick as possible, so you have those on points, extra range, and it provides the poke from range as well as the slow that's going to be needed to really lock down Creation.
As we come into this game, we talked a little bit about Hunter's playstyle, waiting for that poke, allowing Harmonious then to dive onto Creation in the backline. What are we looking for from Ace Gaming? Because you've got this Alpha who can be aggressive, saw it from Hunters in the last game, and then you've got Weapon Power Petal, which takes a bit of time, really, to scale into the game.
Yeah, it does. And so for this Petal skin here, sorry,
for the Petal skin,
well, no, it's
out of this world, isn't it?
It's pew 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 Petal, and so when you you stack your attack speed, it's very annoying to listen to if you're on the opposite team, and it's very fun when it's on your team because you know that you're tilting the opponents just by auto attacks alone. Yeah, this Petal here wants to be as aggressive as possible. She struggles into Samuel Drews for the range. If this was a Crystal Power Petal, she would struggle even more because those Munions get taken out, but Munions are just not a thing for Weapon Power Petal. Creation's looking for the Sorrow Blade, and he's looking to get Tornado Triggers online so he can just jump in with the Trampoline Weapon Power Amp and do as much damage very quickly to Swagu.
Both teams going aggressive in the jungle, not being able to steal away the Treants, but Creation has to be careful because of that Drifting Dark. Swagu, the Healing Flask has already been used by Creation. Trying to get the damage out. There's a great double fish food as well, and Hunters, the early aggressive jungle plays into Ace.
And Ace kind of got stuck between a rock and a hard place there. Tassa was stuck in the lane, and Creation was stuck in the jungle. Role reversal, which was not something they really wanted to be dealing with. They needed to be as a unit to deal with the early aggression as Samuel Lorelei can provide. Samuel's still one of the premier invader junglers just due to the fact that at level 2 he has such a massive power spike with that Drifting Duck Malice and Verdict combination, and so it's very difficult for Ace Gaming to deal with if they get caught in a mistake. And early mistakes like that, the forced aggression Hunters can perform, is what they need to be doing if they want to really snowball ahead of the Ace Gaming roster.
And once again, it's a timing thing. You look at it, they're going at 3 minutes 30, they get the aggression down, and then they back away before the jungle intensifies. And that's something we saw from Hunters in Game 1 as well. So I'm really liking that aggression.
Man, Harmonious has such an crazy CS lead over Creation as well. This is so non-typical of Creation, who normally is one of the monstrous CSs in the game, but that early mistake in the jungle, getting caught on up and then in fact losing his life, has put him immensely behind at this point, close to 20 CS at the 5-minute mark. Harmonious has finished his Serpent's Mask and is going towards armor to protect himself against what will be a crit-focused Petal.
Yongchu caught up in the clam there. Swagu trying to put the damage down. Harmonious goes deep. The Oblivion doesn't connect. Tassa there. The Trespass will pull them back. And there's damage coming down on towards the Ace members. They've been forced back behind their turret. Still not 6 on Creation as well. So it doesn't have that spontaneous combustion to try and defend. But I don't think Hunters can go for much more here.
really the spontaneous combustion is about healing more than anything on the weapon power format. Here's that drifting dart, but there was no energy for Swagoo. He had to wait a little bit, potentially not looking at his energy bar there. So the siege potential from Hunters lost a little bit due to the fact that there's no energy regen yet in the kit of Swagoo, something I'm sure he'll change very shortly.
Has already got the Dragon's Eye, so we'll start trying to stack that up. We need to keep an eye on those stacks, of course, in these fights. So vital for Hunters that he keeps them nice and high. Creation getting dived here, but the spontaneous combustion is available for him as he heals up a little bit. Hunters trying to put some damage down on the turret as Harmonious bags away. So 26 seconds before he can use that Rose offensive. Swagoo trying to tank it up, and Harmonious is caught out. But already Creation is down, and Harmonious is still alive somehow. Eventually falls a 1-for-1 trade under the jungle, under the tower of Ace.
That was definitely turning a bad situation into a good one by Hunters, but it's not over yet.
Tassa goes in with the Prime Directive, but Swagoo low on energy goes down into the Infinite Reboot. That's not what you want to see if you're an Ace Gaming fan. And now they're chased onto Youngju as well. The Fish Food doesn't connect, but the final auto attack's not quite enough because the Fountain was used by that Churn Walker to keep himself safe.
Yeah, Tassa going to be kicking himself for not activating the termination protocol there. Here comes this engage from Swagoo. Going to push Creation back and do damage to the turret. It should go down fairly easily. Hunters have such an early game advantage right now. 2,000 gold is so big against a weapon power Petal. She is so late game reliant. She has a Sorrow Blade, but she needs to get at least 2 Tornado triggers before she even becomes threatening to the Hunters roster. And if Hunters can continue holding her down, drowning her from gold, then their ability to come back into this series and potentially cause that tie-breaker scenario that we fear could come from this group, then it's going to be a game like this that Hunters need to do it in.
It's the strong early aggression we've talked about. The Chinese region is famed for it. We saw it from Kraken yesterday, and now we're seeing it from Hunters as well. But you can't count Ace Gaming out at any point. They're very good at coming back from a deficit, and I'm sure they have a game plan in mind after they've fallen behind early on here.
Swagoo with the Clockwork second. I'm loving the Clockwork prioritization by these teams here. It's something that the Western regions haven't quite clocked onto, is the fact that you just build Clockwork whenever. Doesn't really matter. Build it here, build it there, build it everywhere. And it provides so much threat. You know, on the Celeste earlier on yesterday from Team Kraken, it was just impossible to deal with, and it was a first item purchase for Celeste as well. It makes sense. When you buy Clockwork, you get your Supernova basically coming out every 2 seconds, which is huge damage ampage. And so it makes so much sense that Clockwork would be prioritized. Gonna see a gold miner started up.
Has been spotted by Ace as well. There's the Torment to bring them back. The gold miner goes down, taken out by the Churn Walker, and Ace Gaming might look for a bit of a trade here. Harmonious forced back. Oblivion doesn't connect as well, and Ace will just try and get away, but a good Fish Food will stun up Youngju. Engage with the Rose offensive, continuing to trade in. Swagoo is doing a lot of work in this fight. The Crystal Sentry's going to join him up as well. One down for Ace. Hunters now need to back away because the Termination Protocol is going to come out from Tassa, and Creation is still able to put some damage down from the side, but 2 kills for Hunters and that Crystal Sentry as well.
You hear people talk about this interaction of Black Feather into Alpha so often. When Alpha goes into her Termination Protocol, her health is reduced to 1. When she goes into a reboot process, her health is reduced to 0. And Black Feather's A is an missing health execute, so he does so much damage with that Faint of Heart, not Faint of Heart, so much damage, it is Faint of Heart, into Alpha, regardless of how many Heartthrob stats he has generated, just due to the fact he literally has no HP. And so Tassa needs to really do some significant damage. I wouldn't be surprised if he even goes Clockwork as a 3rd item after this Broken Myth, so that he can reboot within 2 seconds and try and make sure that doesn't happen in these team fights. Swagoo's found Tassa caught out at the back of his jungle, but they might not look to push it because this turret is pushed on up and they can really get some damage down.
And that's what you want to do. Even if you can't get the kills, or if you have to chase too far for the kills, you then go back into the lane, get some pressure down on towards the turrets when you can, and that's what Hunters are doing very well at the moment. 10 minutes in, they are 3,000 gold ahead. So much quicker than in Game 1, where it saw a long time before we really got going.
Creation is definitely struggling here. That's going to be The turret falling to Hunters close forward. Yes, they do.
Good fish food. Harmonious jumps in though with the Rose Offensive, gets stunned up, and now it's onto Tassa to try and do some damage. Goes into the Termination Protocol, but doesn't get the damage off. Creation still only sitting at one Tornado Trigger. 2 members of his team will fall, and he cannot get the damage down onto the rest of Hunters, who are looking unstoppable this game.
Yeah, the burst from Harmonious there just really makes that point we talked about earlier so much more threatening when you just see him lose all of his HP in that reboot protocol. That's going to be another Crystal Century going down. Hunters are stealing so much away from Ace Gaming. Almost a full jungle clear coming through from them, as well as that Sentry is just causing so much issue for Tassa. They've already put Creation behind, now they're putting Tassa behind, and Ace Gaming need to have someone who can at least hold the fort if they want to be able to go head to toe with Hunters, and right now they have no one who can do so. Creation is getting closer and closer to that second Tornado Trigger, but who can he prioritize on the enemy team? If he jumps forward into a team fight, then Harmonious says, thank you, you did my job for me. If he tries to go into Swagoo, then Godfather puts a water wall on top of him. Godfather has a clockwork as well, so he can put 2 water walls onto Swagoo in a team fight. It is ridiculously difficult for Ace Gaming to find any win conditions in these team fights and execute upon them, and Hunter's draft as well as early execution has just made this game pretty much impossible for Ace Gaming to come back.
Never want to count them out there. We've seen Ace Gaming make a lot of comebacks in the past, but Hunter's looking incredibly strong as this game does progress. A Metal Jacket finished on towards Harmonious. The second Tornado Trigger is there for Creation, so you need to watch both this Black Feather and that Petal, who has been caught out slightly. Swagoo doing a lot of work with those Malice and Verdicts. There is the Fish Food as well, the stun onto Yongju as he gets forced back. And Hunters, the dominant team in China, losing only 1 game throughout the last split, are now looking dominant against the best team in Korea. And once again, East Asia just looking as strong as we expected them to as a region here in the World Championships.
Yeah, this is going to be a turret, threatened, and siege. Does Tassa engage as Youngju? We have to see. This is their moment if they want to have it.
Pull back onto Swagoo, looking for the engage. Tassa goes in, but the Fish Food stun is in a perfect position. Tassa's now trying to retreat as Harmonious jumps forward the Oblivion. A little bit too late there from Hunters as Ace get back behind their turret, but as soon as that barrier falls off, that turret is going to go down because you've got so much poke from Swagoo and from Harmonious. The turret falls. Third of the game for Hunters, who have yet to lose one of their own. Ace Gaming just once again retreat back. They realize they cannot quite take a fight yet.
Yeah, and that's a very scary thing to see from them, because there was a really big opportunity for them to engage on to Swagoo and stun up both Godfather and Swagoo and potentially burst him down in that period of a stun, so that they can at least remove one of the Hunters members, and they did not want to execute upon that, clearly threatened by the power that Hunters have demonstrated so far. Choke point turret going down so easily for Hunters pre-13 minutes has just set the pace of this series and really put the pressure onto Ace Gaming even further, because for this next minute and a half, Hunters are just going to spend time taking away jungle from Ace Gaming and securing this last gold miner of the game for themselves, putting even further the gold differential between these two teams when the Kraken spawns. Maybe Ace go for an all-or-nothing play. This is a time that you could kind of get away with it, because it may be difficult for Ace Gaming to push into the base and take stuff, but no, it is not going to be the case. Of course, Ace want to play a more calculated game style. They have to be very careful here as Hunters move on in. Spotted up in the jungle, but it is jungle just being taken away nonetheless. In the gold lead, it gets further and further apart. Tassa further and further pushed down. Creation not having the influence on this weapon power Petal, and I think people expected that weapon power Petal would fall off in a heavy way on this update, and you can kind of see it here from Creation. He just has not had any influence on this game, and if you pick weapon power Petal, you need to be the boss of the game, and so far it's just not happened.
It's the boss of the minions at the moment. He can take those down, but not really take down any members of Hunters. TSM will be looking at this game and pretty happy with it thus far, because if both these teams draw and TSM takes a 2-0 win, they take first spot in this group. It's a possibility for them. Yeah,
and not only that, it would mean that Hunters would go through... Sorry. Yeah, if it's 2-0, Hunters would go through a second place, and that would be East Asia eliminated from our World Championship the former world champions and the region that hosts them eliminated in 2017. That would be a twist that no one was expecting. We'll have to see how that does unfold when North America meets Asia, East Asia very shortly.
That is the series going on after this game concludes. The Kraken has been started, though, by Hunters. They want to try and close this game out pretty quickly. Youngju there in the front line, looking for the hook and chain. Creation with the flank. Harmonious in that front line of Ace, but Creation jumps in, getting a lot of damage down onto Swaggy, but Harmonious is doing a lot of work as well. Creation somehow surviving. Harmonious will take him down, and now it's up to Tassa to take out the Black Feather, but the heals coming out from Godfather are pretty big. The shields, Harmonious gets one. Tassa, what can you do in a 1v2? You have to do it for Ace. You have to do it for East Asia, but he cannot quite get onto that back line. Godfather standing in the front. The front direct is going to go in, but look at the water wall. Termination protocol on towards Harmonious. It's not enough damage, and Harmonious will be able to take out Tassa before he comes back up. An ace for Hunters, and they'll take the Kraken as well.
Yeah, I think Tassa was really pretty much condemned to a death there because of the excellent body blocking coming out from Godfather. Also, Tassa's build, this Broken Myth-oriented build, very good for burst damage, but not as good for the sustained that Dragon's Eye can provide. It's a very conscious decision you have to make as an alpha, whether you want to burst someone down, and considering the fact that you need to remove Swagger very quickly, it makes sense. But then, in that scenario where very likely Petal will be dead because she's had to dive into the team fight, it means that can you 2v2 a Black Feather? We just saw he could not. Hunters have unleashed the Kraken onto Ace Gaming now. This next team fight is that all or nothing god play from Ace Gaming. They will have infusions ready to go. Creation is going to have some armor to try and deal with Harmonious as well. But if they're not able to take down Swagger in a similar fashion, then they might not be able to defend against this Kraken.
And this is it if you're Ace. Hunters, last game of group stage for them, quite possibly. Youngju down to about half as Harmonious now dives in. Creation trying to get on towards that backline. Swagger's taking a lot of her, but so has Creation, and he will fall first. And you have to feel perhaps that's just the fight won already for Hunters. What can Ace do? What can Tassa do? Up against the two carries from Hunters who are seeking out their prey. Tassa will fall, and Youngju's like, I've got a chain, I guess. But that chain is not enough to help them win the fight. Hunters take another ace, and with the Kraken, will be able to push in and take the Vayne to equalize this series at 1-1. A superb performance by them, and it takes them 2-2 across the group. Great chance to get through to the quarterfinals later today.
Group D, the group of death, demonstrating its name here. One apiece so far across of all of the games played. And this next series, TSM